Hey YouTubes, it's Halcoon. So this is another off-the-cuff update. What I'm doing so far with the double bottom. Progress is going slowly and surely. I'm up to frame 64 now. I'm beginning to work on some of the JP5 fuel tanks. JP5 is the jet fuel that's used on carriers to fuel the aircraft on board. I've gotten so far 2 fire zones done. Fire zone number 1 right here, fire zone 2 over here. What a fire zone is a transverse bulkhead that goes all the way through the ship that is both watertight and fire tight, and it keeps, if there's a fire on one side of the ship, it won't be able to penetrate through if you lock everything down. It starts, of course, at the flooring and works its way up. So you'll always find a watertight compartment at the border of a fire zone. Is the idea behind that. The new objects are looking good. I really like the way that the space pointers look now, so you can see where all the space are pointing inward. I've identified longitudinals now that are coming in, which is something I skipped on my original draft. If you take a look at the original draft right here, so you can kind of compare and contrast. There's no longitudinals. These are kind of cattywampus because the way I put them together was a little, I'd take a line and then just stretch them out, and it didn't look very good. The new version here looks a lot more clean. These actually stray down in a line, which is nice. Of course, the plates, the lightning holes, and the access ways for the JP5 is here. One of the things I do want to share, though, is because these plans were declassified, there are certain aspects of the plans I think that are interesting. When I was working on the blueprint, copying from the original, I noticed, I'll show you in GIMP real quick here, I noticed that the colors sort of dictate, I don't know how well this is going to show up on YouTube, but you can see that there is places where it appears to be whited out. You can tell that they've covered some parts of the ship pointers and stuff. You can see where the arrows kind of go in. So there's more data here than what's showing, and it's probably pointing to these big blank areas that I like to call phantom spaces. They've been painted out, redacted, and the reason why that is most likely because the ship in question has an armor belt around it, and they still make carriers with this armor belt on it. So it's not going to be real conducive to show how the bottom parts of the ship underneath the waterline are armored to give that information out. But what I thought was cool was while I was looking at this, I was noticing, like I said, it might be hard to tell. You can tell that there's lines that are going into, that are getting cut off and that are going into the system, or going into the ship. And I decided what would happen if I was to actually color this off-colored whiteout. Would I be able to see what has been redacted? And if I do that, you can actually see, yes, there's all kinds of stuff. It's like all these spaces have all been redacted. They're all been painted over. You can see here where the arrow came inside and was painted over. You can see all the spaces down here that were painted over. The arrows here. But one of the things I also found out is like there's supposed to be something written here which is gone. But what's cool is you can also tell that this over here, this actually has some sort of data sheet which is also missing. Most likely it's a list of spaces, but that's also kind of cool to discover. There's something that's written here. So this was kind of a neat thing that I have discovered when I was looking at the double bottom, that you can actually see where all the spaces are that have been removed from view. Now, the thing is I kind of want to put some of these back if I can find out what they are. For example, if you look at the damage control here, they also show the phantom spaces too. These are just unlabeled, so you don't know what's inside them. And this largely matches what is in the deck plans themselves. However, from time to time you can see a space poke out. For example, you know, even though on the original blueprints this right here was voided out, this 8 attack 44 attack 2 attack Victor is actually in the damage control plans here. So I popped them in. It seemed rational to pop them in there. But still, it's kind of an interesting little discovery I thought I would share. Other than that, let's see what other stuff have I come across. Let's see. Oh, another thing that happened so far too is I nearly screwed up my y-axis again. If I turn on my grids here, this is the longitudinal one that I messed up the scaling the first time around. Almost messed it up again. I originally calculated the space between the longitudinals here as being 3 feet 4 inches, and it turns out that it's actually 41 inches, 3 feet 5 inches. I don't know why 41 inches is what they chose, but having it 1 inch short, I was actually running the out of space in the ship. So on the edges, they were going more and more out of whack. So if I pull up my original here, you can now see that the longitudinal outlines match so much better now to the frame of the ship, which is nice. So that's pretty much this is pretty much the update. Mostly what I'm doing is just trucking along and filling out the spaces and working my way down. Oh, one more thing though too, the way that I'm organizing this is that each space of course gets its own layer now, and when I'm done with the layer I lock it. So when I'm complete, for example, if I close this out right here, I can make spaces disappear by just muting them, and you can see there's one space right here, here's another space right here. The phantom spaces I measure with an X, so I know that they are not real spaces, but they are sort of accounted for on the ship. And the idea is that I should be able to take any one of these spaces out and render them as a individual item, or take it out and process that particular space on its own. So each space gets its own layer, which is cool. And also I have the center line that I'm working on as well. But that's, like I said, that's pretty much it. I know it's exciting, but once I start getting up to the higher decks, I can probably find some more interesting things, because this is basically just tanks. It's basically a bunch of fuel tanks and water tanks and voids. And as soon as I work a little bit further on, we'll probably see some progress and see some more cool things. Anyways, that's my update. I know it's exciting, but that's what I got. Any questions, comments? Feel free to leave them. Thanks. See ya.